Welcome back, Trinidad and Tobago. Now, Jassy Marique is normally here every Friday, and the last segment for Spotlight is now it's probably going to be a little more regular on the show, because we're going to bring him into the other section. He's going to spar a little bit, but it's not business or politics. Now we're actually talking Caribbean football. As many of you may know, earlier this year, the union was rocked by controversy following an international scandal, the now infamous cash for votes scandal, and where a FIFA vice president has been banned for life and another one has resigned. Coming out of that, the Caribbean Football Union has seen a number of its officials suspended. Many have been removed from office, some resignations, but a lot of vacancies remain. Jassy knows a little bit more about the administration of football in the Caribbean, but what does this really mean for the administration of football in the region? Trinidad and Tobago is now out of the World Cup. Sad news there, Jassy.
Sad news.
Did you cry?
Of course not.
I did.
Big boys don't cry.
Real men cry. But now that we're looking a little beyond Trinidad and Tobago, the administration of football in the Caribbean, the union is the governing body of regional activities. The Caribbean has had some success stories. We have Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago being the smallest island to have ever qualified for the World Cup in 2006. We saw the euphoria, the joy, the fact that a Centre of Excellence is also located in Trinidad and Tobago, one of the major hubs of football activity in the region. Now, the foundation of all of this seems to be shaken. Elections were supposed to take place over this weekend, but yes. I understand that there have been some changes. This morning on set, Harold Taylor. Harold is actually a former General Secretary of the Caribbean Football Union. He was there when the union first started back in the 70s, and he's now attempting to put his hand in the ring to be the next president of the union. Many of you may know that Jack Warner has resigned from that position. Mr. Taylor, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Happy to be here.
Now, let's start a little bit about the elections. Elections immediately following the resignation of Mr. Warner, he demitted all offices attached to football. Caribbean Football Union being one, he, I think, has served 6 or 7 terms, right?
Yeah, about 7 terms.
Right, and now there is the prospect of a new person. Well, there will be a new person entering the leadership. Why? What exactly is happening with the elections?
Well, the elections are scheduled for Sunday, coming on the 20th, in Montego Bay. I mean, the members of the CFU asked for an extraordinary general meeting in order to replace the president. The main item on the agenda is the election of the president, and that was agreed to by the executive of the Caribbean Football Union at a meeting they had in Kingston on the 8th of September this year. So that as far as we are concerned, the meeting is on the 20th of November.
Now, the meeting is on 20th. I understand that the General Secretary of the Caribbean Football Union has stated that the union is cash-strapped and that they cannot afford this event.
Yes, she said so, and right away we advised her that will not be a problem, because we have sponsors of the Caribbean Football Union who are prepared to come forward and undertake the hosting of the Congress.
So, of course, Mr. Taylor, you've been around football for quite some time.
A long time.
But really and truly, in terms of a more prominent role in the last couple of years, you've been, I wouldn't say in a backseat, but, less prominent, played less of a prominent role. What would you bring, if elected, to the Caribbean Football Union, which is really and truly in need of some direction?
Well, you said the last couple of years I was in a less prominent role, and that is quite true, because up to the end of December 2009, I was the FIFA Development Officer for the region. So up to that time, I worked very closely with all the people in the Caribbean, all the members, especially with development projects and so on. Since then, although I limited office at that point in time, I have been in constant contact with the people in the Caribbean. Because of my experience, because of the length of time I've worked with them, because of the relationship I have with most of the associations, they have called me regularly for advice, for assistance, and so on. Come to think of it, in May, just before that meeting that we had here, I was supposed to go to the BVI, because they have some problems there, and maybe they had asked me to spend about 2 weeks with them trying to see how we could sort out the problems. So although I didn't have any official position in the Caribbean, I never lost contact with the people in the region.
Ms. Taylor, you were part of the foundation of this union. The union has obviously undergone a number of changes. Some may look at you and ask, why not give a chance for new blood to enter, that you were part of the foundation of this. They look at your age, and this means no disrespect, but winds of change are changing all over. Why not give someone else a chance? You already served in that capacity.
When you say look at my age and you say no disrespect, I am very proud of my age, because there are a lot of young fellows who at my age can't do what I am doing. What has happened really and truly, as soon as this situation arose in the Caribbean, I had calls from members of the Caribbean asking me to come forward because they feel they need at this point in time somebody with the kind of experience I have, with the knowledge, and some even tell me wisdom, which I doubt very much, but they even tell me wisdom. So after giving it a lot of thought, I talked to my family about it, and I really, especially my children, and they all agree that this is something that I love. This is something I worked for all during the years. And now as they saw the union in a crisis, they thought that I should come forward to try and help.
Why is the union in crisis?
Well, we don't have any leadership at this point in time.
But the position of the president is vacant, but I also understand that there are a number of other positions that are vacant as well. Your senior vice president, two of your vice presidents have been suspended by FIFA.
Yeah.
I think Captain Burrell and also Colin Class.
Colin Class. And Lionel Haven, who is a member, has resigned recently. So they only have right now 3 members of the executive committee.
So you are going up for the position of president.
That's
the
right.
election that has been postponed is the election for the president?
The election, the extraordinary Congress is what has been called. The main item, and that is the election of the president. And the extraordinary Congress was called for by the members of the CFU, not by the executive. So the executive doesn't have the power to cancel that or to postpone it. They have to carry out the directives of the membership and call it as we agree.
A large role that you would play once elected, if elected, would be to get the house back in order, so to speak.
Right.
Of course, another part of that would be succession planning. As you said, given your age, how do you propose to, really take on those 2 aspects?
Well, if we take succession planning, I have already decided that I will look, and I know who it is already, a young person, because in the Caribbean, a lot of people don't realize it, but we have some very bright young people in the Caribbean in football, and I have at least one of them already on board who will come in, and I am certain after 3 years, that person will be in a position to take over the union. So for succession planning, I am involved. At least I have that organized already, because I believe that is absolutely necessary at this point in time.
Was that lacking in previous administrations?
Well, I will say so. I will say it was lacking, because I think all of us look at Jack Warner as a superhuman, and nobody ever thought Jack Warner will collapse or he will die or he will. Everybody worked as if Jack Warner will live forever. And therefore, in truth and in fact, although we had a vice president, I don't think they ever worked to try and say that they want to follow Jack Warner. They work as if Jack Warner was going to be there forever. But I think no, I wouldn't be there forever. I believe I'll try to complete the 3 years. But as I said before, during that time, I will try to get somebody who could follow me.
The 25 members of the CFU, out of the membership, how many persons would like to have this election and how many persons have disagreed? According to your constitution, I think 10 members must call for this election.
Yeah, more than 10 called for the election. We had more than 10 called for the election. And right now, I have been contacting the members, and I have some 19 members who have said they want this Congress to go on Sunday as scheduled. At first, I thought it was 18, and then all of a sudden, Puerto Rico said to tell me, because I didn't include Puerto Rico. I didn't call them, but they sent to say they are on board. So we now have about 19 members who have said definitely they're going to be there on Sunday. How
would you describe Caribbean football at this time, Mr. Taylor? How important is this election?
Well, this election is important because you see, as we get the Caribbean Football Union settled, we'll also have to look towards CONCACAF. And if we understand the history of CONCACAF, it's very important if the Caribbean want to get any benefits from the football to also control CONCACAF. Over the years, we have had a gentleman by the name of Joaquin Soraya Terrazas, who was from Mexico, who controlled CONCACAF at the time. And during those years, the CFU and the people of the Caribbean got absolutely nothing. When the CFU began to benefit from being in CONCACAF is when Jack Warner became president. So that if we go back to that situation where we have a Mexican or somebody from Central or North America we'll go backwards and the Caribbean people will suffer again.
Of course, the big picture here is football and the development of football.
That's right.
We've closed the gap amongst ourselves, but the Central American regions have continued to rise and have left us behind really and truly. Of course, what are your plans if once elected, you know?
Well, again, as I said before, I was development officer for some 5 years at FIFA development officer, and I feel we had to look at some good development programs. I remember years ago, not too many years ago anyway, we used to have an under-15 competition in the Caribbean. We first started off with the boys. They used to come to Trinidad and have that competition, and then we started off with boys and girls. I think Mr. Warner used to fund that, and after a while he decided, well, it was too much, and we have dropped that competition. I think it's absolutely necessary for us to reinstate that competition. And therefore, one of the first things I'm going to do is look for sponsorship for that competition. Because at under 15, and so we are fairly equal. But the problem we have in the region is that our under 15s don't get the kind of exposure that maybe the people in Central America and so on and so forth get. So what we have to do is to provide competition for them so they will get some exposure, at least against our players, and then we will see how we'll move from there.
Mr. Taylor, we do have to take a very short break. When we come back, I understand that Mr. Taylor has sought some legal advice from eminent attorney Sir Sridhar Rampal. We're going to find out exactly what was stated. The Caribbean Football Union was expected or was scheduled to hold its elections were scheduled for this weekend. Some changes have taken place, but Mr. Taylor is saying that elections will go forward. Many have said that without Jack Warner, Caribbean football cannot survive. Is there any truth to that statement? Stay with us. Welcome back to Trinidad and Tobago. We're continuing to look at the state of Caribbean football in the region. And my co-host for this segment, Jassy Marique. Jassy and I kind of teamed up. We're doing the good cop, bad cop thing this morning. Would I be good or the bad one?
Well, it's glad to see who is bad. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm good, but it's glad to see who's bad.
Most women are aggressive. I think that comes up with that. On set, Harold Taylor. Mr. Taylor, you are a former General Secretary of the Caribbean Football Union. You are saying that the membership has called for this election. Those who have been foisted in the position of power are saying that the union is cash-strapped. I understand that one of the members, Yves Jabat, is now acting president as a result of the dwindling numbers in your executive committee. Now, what exactly is the situation? Will there be election this weekend, and what advice did you receive?
Well, I said before, there will be election on Sunday in Montego Bay in Jamaica. I always try to be very careful with what I do. So when the situation arose and there's all this controversy, I sought legal advice. I decided to go maybe to the best in the region. So I sought legal advice from Sir Sridhar Rampal. The problem here is that at this point in time, as you say, the CFU doesn't have any officers. There are no officers in the executive committee. And by the statutes, for the executive committee to have a quorum where they could take decisions, they must have at least 2 officers. So they're into a situation where the executive committee itself cannot take any decision. What they have done, I don't know where they got the power to do it, and we looked at the statutes, and they don't have any power for doing this. They have decided that Jabat is going to be acting president. From the advice we got from Sir Sridhar, they cannot do that. They cannot make Jabat president, acting president. They cannot make any decisions at all. So what they have to do really and truly is to go ahead with this Congress called by the members in order to right the situation in the region. They have taken decisions to make Jabat, to make Luis Hernandez a vice president. They want to bring in people from the president of the Cayman Islands Association, the president, is smiling. They want to bring in the president of the Curaçao Football Association. And by the way, I called the president of the Curaçao Association to ask him if he was consulted on this, that he's now a member of the executive committee. I don't know where they get the power from, that they could just pick up people and make them. And as far as he told me, he is not going to take up that position as a member of the executive committee.
You mentioned that this Congress will go ahead with the support of a sponsors. Yeah. Would you care to identify
the sponsor?
Yeah.
I don't think that will be wise because, you know, we have several sponsors and some people may think some sponsor might be doing this to get an advantage. So at this point in time, I'd rather keep that to
Is
myself.
it a corporate entity?
It's a corporate entity. Somebody who has been helping the CFU all through the years.